Happy June, everybody. Happy Pride Month. We are thrilled to have you. My name is Lauren Jasinski. I am the chair of the Royal Oak Area Democratic Club. As you saw when you walked in, if you didn't yet check in with Ian, if you have club dues to pay, you can touch base with him. He's outside in the hallway at that table. We've also got a ton of free stuff out there. Please feel free to take it from me. Please feel free to take it so that I don't have to take it back home. We've got vintage, we just kind of have a whole vibe this morning. We've got our retired logo on our old t-shirts out there. So please feel free to help yourself if you want some, for yard work or whatever. And we also have some swag that our friends over at Planned Parenthood dropped off. So there's like buttons and pins, a few t-shirts, masks, and a whole box full of condoms. So please help yourself. We have like dueling futures. Yeah, you bypass that offer. We'll see you. But we'll join. Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. We've got a ton of really great guests today. We've got important updates about things happening around the city. I do want to, we're going to switch up what's on the agenda just ever so slightly because as you saw, our lost and found coordinator, Andy Levin is here and he wants to say hello and chat with us, but he is getting to another event. So I'm going to turn the floor over to him first. And then we're going to be joined by Jason Nolan, who is here from an organization called Bring High Vote. So Andy, why don't you come on up? Oh. No, I'm going to let Andy talk. All right. Go ahead. Come on.
All right, thanks. All right. Wow, what a good turnout. Royal Oak Dems. Awesome. Well, it's great to be with you this morning. I've already played hockey today, so I'm happy. But we had to switch up our game from BSC to Troy because of the ice show at the BSC. So kids, I love the ice show. So the way I'm feeling this morning is I'm like your hyper local congressperson and your global congressperson. I was here with Melanie Macy and others yesterday, celebrating the fact that we got in, our wonderful appropriations chair, Rosa DeLauro, brought back what used to be called earmark, it's now called Community Project Fund. And it's fantastic. It's super transparent. And we get, for the fiscal year 2022, we got to put in 10 projects. And we're very nerdy about it, very proper. There's 12 subcommittees of the appropriations committee, and each one has different rules. And and you can apply in all those different categories. So anyway, we put in 10 projects. We got them all. We got every single one of them. And one of them was for Royal Oak. It was just under $100,000 to do an aerial survey and advance your tree canopy, getting up over 40% of coverage. Awesome. And then for this current fiscal year, we're allowed to put in 15 projects. And again, we had this big competition for all the jurisdictions. And Royal Oak came through again. And so we have put in, for I think about $1.1 million to totally basically redo your animal shelter and have almost brand new animal shelter. So that would be really fantastic. Now, we don't have the money for that. We have to get through the whole process, but we're going to try to get through every step of the way and get that. And on the other hand, on the other end of the scale, today is June 4th. It's Pride Month. I'll be in Ferndale. I'll be all over, celebrating Pride. But it's the 33rd anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And your congressperson is the only one, that's a good thing, who was in China 33 years ago today. I was in Chengdu trying to get into Tibet. Graduate student in Ann Arbor studying Buddhist philosophy, supposed to be getting a PhD. I ended up getting a master's and going to law school, in part because rather than studying my ancient text, I was trying to get into Tibet and human rights work. So you can kind of see that that switch probably made sense. But in all seriousness, it was a remarkable experience, but a horrible one. I saw people killed before my eyes there. who were just trying to protest for democracy, as that we called it the Tiananmen Square Massacre, but it was a national crackdown all at the same time, and that's actually not a very good name for it because, but that was the big drama on the world stage. The pictures we saw of the person from the thing, you know, so I'm the vice chair of the Asia subcommittee, and I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I speak up about human rights violations all around the world, including throughout Asia and Burma and India and all over. And then I'm also on the Western Hemisphere subcommittee. And a couple of years before that, I was in Haiti and again saw horrible violence when I was an observer at the first attempt at a presidential election after the dictatorship of the Duvaliers was overthrown. And so I have, there's no Haitian Americans in this room. I represent almost no Haitian Americans, but I'm the person who created a Haiti caucus in the Congress for the first time in decades. I got a spreadsheet of the biggest Haitian American districts in the country, and I recruited Ayanna Presley from Massachusetts, Yvette Clark from New York City, and Val Demings from Florida to be my co-chairs to found this caucus. And we are fighting against the horrible deportations of Haitians and for a whole different U.S. policy towards Haiti. So I'm kind of your peace and justice and global human rights congressman, as well as fighting for like everything we can get for Royal Oak. This campaign is about the three Ps, I've come to say. I'm the progressive candidate in this race. I'm the pragmatic candidate in this race, and I'm the principled candidate who's always going to do what's right. In terms of progressive, I'm one of the leaders of the Progressive Caucus. My opponent is in the New Dem Caucus. I traveled the country for Elizabeth Warren. She was for a new Democrat, Michael Bloomberg, in 2020 in the presidential election. I'm an original co-sponsor of Medicare for All and believe healthcare is a fundamental human right. She doesn't support that policy. I'm one of 27 senators and representatives in the Congress who is a co-sponsor of all 10 Green New Deal bills. And I'm the author of one of them with Elizabeth Warren, the Build Green Act. And my opponent doesn't support any of those. So, we could go on and on. In terms of peace, I'm one of 100 Democrats in the Congress who vote against the National Defense Authorization Act every year because 750 to 800, now they're proposing $813 billion for military next year. It's wrong. And I'm for U.S. having by far the strongest military in the world, but could we spend more than the next 5 countries combined instead of the next 10 countries combined? And if we cut the military budget by even 20%, we could fund universal child care with nobody paying more than 7% of their family budget. We could fund universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds. And we could fund my proposal that President Biden amazingly adopted, I'm still amazed by it, to have free community college and 2 years of free study essentially at historically Black colleges and universities. That would have been in Build Back Better, but for Joe Manchin. But we could fund all of that and more if we had that. So, I'm the progressive candidate in the race. But I'm also the pragmatic and effective one. In our first term, I passed over twice as much legislation. And I've introduced over twice as much and will pass over twice as much this Congress. Some of it is very, very progressive. With Jack Reed, I got the biggest funding for public libraries in the history of our country into the American Rescue Plan. $200 million we passed for public libraries. Recently, can you imagine how this felt? I'm the union organizer in the Congress. I organized for SEIU for 5 years. I was the staff attorney for President Clinton's Labor Law Reform Commission. Then for 11 years, I was the assistant director of organizing at the AFL-CIO. The staff of the House came to me and said, you have to be, not my personal staff, the broader staff, that you have to be the person who introduces the resolution to let us be able to form unions and bargain collectively. Believe it or not, our own staff, 26 years ago, the Congress passed a bill to bring a lot of federal rights to Capitol Hill workers, including collective bargaining, but they just applied collective bargaining to everybody but their own staff. Architect of the Capitol, Library of Congress, Congressional Research Service, the Capitol Police, our own district office staff, DC office staff, and committee staff have never had the fundamental human right to form a union bargain collectively. A couple weeks ago, the House passed my resolution, and they have it now, the right to form a union bargain collectively, our own employees. So I get a lot of legislation, but also a lot of it is bipartisan. Even under the previous president, I got passed, both signed by him and by President Biden, legislation to prevent harmful incineration of PFAS chemicals to protect our air and water. I got passed a bipartisan legislation, again under the previous president, during the pandemic to help WIC moms get access to nutritious food for themselves and their babies. Who needs that more than WIC, Women, Infants, and Children program? It's a program for perinatal care and help for infants of poor mothers. And I got legislation passed to help prevent veteran suicide. So I'm very pragmatic, but the principled one is what's really standing out to me right now. I'm going to do what's right no matter what. We are sitting in Royal Oak. I currently represent you all. I'm running for re-election to continue to represent you all. The new 11th district is all in Oakland County. Nobody represents a majority of it. It's a mashup of my district, Brenda Lawrence's district, and Haley Stevens' district. 60 to 70% of each of our constituents are somewhere else. But for me, I live in Bloomfield Township, the very western edge of my current district, smack dab in the middle of the new 11th district. Mary and I have lived there for 16 years. All 4 of our kids have gone to public school there. I grew up in Berkeley in the new 11th district. My dad lives right here in Royal Oak in the new 11th district. His mom was born in Birmingham in 1898 in the new 11th district. Her parents, Morris and Biddle Levinson, were immigrants. Morris went around with a horse and cart selling things to farm wives, I think mostly. But then they opened the general store in the little country town of Birmingham, the building that is now the Starbucks. And there's actually a historic plaque that's missing at the moment, right to the right of the door when you go in. That was a picture of that building in the 1890s. It says on the picture the Levinson department store. Anyway, so I'm super happy about this district. I'm running for re-election. But what's happened around the country is the biggest outside spending in Democratic primaries is right-wing on Israel groups and some other special interest groups are pouring millions and millions of dollars to the progressives. They went after Summer Lee. They didn't win. I got to remember the woman's name in Oregon because I supported her. But the first Latina that's going to ever represent Congress or from Oregon won her primary, but they went after her. And they've beaten some people too. Nita Alam and a couple others in North Carolina. And they're coming after me. And they will spend, and my opponent will complain about it, and they will spend $2 to $4 million of dark money trying to go after me. And why? Because, so let's review. I'm Jewish. I'm one of 2 former synagogue presidents in the Congress. I'm a Zionist. I have been my whole life. I support Israel. I support all of our aid to Israel. I'm against the BDS movement. I voted to replenish Iron Dome. But I commit the heresy of saying that the only way to have a secure homeland for my people over time is to fully realize the political and human rights of the Palestinian people too. And I will not back down on that. My opponent also has taken close to $500,000 of money directly into her campaign from the special interest groups and PACs that support Republican insurrections. They support Republicans who have voted to overturn our democracy, including Scott Perry, Ronnie Jackson, Jim Jordan. I mean, these are people who are actively involved in the big lie right now. And so I've said that's wrong. And right when my resolution about our own staff forming a union was in the news, and that was really big news in Washington. The other side, and AIPAC, tried to muddy the waters by saying, Levin's a hypocrite. He's taking money from, PACs that endorse those instructions. So we're constantly reviewing our money. And I've donated money before, like when we realized we can't get fossil fuel money without donating, because unlike my opponent, I've taken no fossil fuel money pledge as well. So we found out that there was some money that we'd taken, and it was from like corporate PACs, like Boeing and some other things. So I take, of all the money I've raised since I started running, I think 3 or 4% has come from corporate PACs. I have a lot of like restrictions. So I said, okay, fine. I'm donating all the money that I've received from anything like that to the Michigan Reproductive Rights for All ballot initiative. And I did that. And then I said, I'm taking no more corporate PAC money ever again. Because look, even with my restrictions, some other corporate PAC next week might give Jim Jordan some money, right? Forget about it. The principal thing to do is just to try to keep all this corporate money out of politics altogether. And so I've taken that stand and I feel awesome about it. I really feel great about it. So, anyway, I'm really, I'm basically a happy warrior for justice locally, our environment, our kids, our seniors, our planet, and I'm really happy to be running for re-election here. I seek your support, and here's why it's so important that we elect a progressive candidate here in the 11th district. This is different, y'all. Just think as Democrats here. This is Royal Democratic Club, right? This new district is not like what we've had before. It's 62% about of Oakland County's population. And I don't know the figure, but I'm guessing at least 75% of Oakland County is Democrats. This new district's only Oakland County. And it includes all, I represent a lot of base Oakland County, right? Hazel Park, Madison Heights, Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, Huntington Woods, Berkeley, Royal Oak, plus over to Bloomfield Township, right? And then you add Royal Oak Township and Oak Park and Pontiac and Farmington Hills, West Bloomfield, over that way. So it's pretty much most of the Democrats. All right, now forget about this primary. Think about our responsibility on November 8th. Okay? We must help put the first Black woman on the state Supreme Court ever in our state. We must flip the state Senate and state House, and we must reelect Dana Nessel, Jocelyn Benson, and Gretchen Whitmer, right? We've got to do that. Off-year election. Our problem in off-year elections is turnout. It's getting our base out. How are we gonna get, and I feel like we have a responsibility. I'm just gonna tell you this right now. I win this primary, I'm gonna be coming to y'all. We have to outperform. We have to have a super turnout. And the way we're gonna get it done is getting the kids out who care about climate change and ending mass incarceration, everybody who wants to end structural racism in this country, everybody who wants to fight as hard as possible to defend the reproductive rights of women and everybody who can have babies in this country, everybody who wants to support unions and collective bargaining and economic justice in this country, everybody who wants to support human rights around the world. So we're going to have to put our strongest and best foot forward. And I want to say on the morning of November 9th, that Oakland County delivered for Gretchen Whitmer and the whole team, and that the new 11th district was the heart of it. So thanks very much. Or no Q&A, or is there time? Okay. As you wish. Yeah, whatever. That's my favorite part. Yes.
You indicated that you don't support the BDS movement. Do you support laws that try to not allow?
Outstanding question. I oppose laws. I consider it a violation of the First Amendment, and it's un-American. The fact that I don't support a specific boycott doesn't mean a state or a university or whatever should have rules that say you're not allowed to support that boycott. I think that's wrong. And so I'm very clear.
Could you just say BDS?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel. So it's like part of there are many controversies, right, about Israel and Palestine. And the most important thing, you all, is to be able to have open discussion about it and not attack each other and not other people. And I mean, one of the main things that they hate me for is that I won't attack the, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Cori Bush and say they're horrible anti-Semites and all that. And how, if you want to fight anti-Semitism, you have to show the relationship between anti-Semitism and other forms of white supremacy and racism and Islamophobia and build alliances with everybody together. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to put my finger up in the wind and seek political advantage and do that. I'll never do that. I'll never sell out you all. And that's why I want your support. So that's a really great question and good clarification. Who else? Yes. Hey.
Why are you comfortable that we're not going to exchange wars for oil for wars for the?
So I think that first of all, I do think that there are broader sources of lithium that we can develop, and they're not all. It's not all in China or not all controlled by China. So that's an urgent priority. Secondly, I think one of the lessons of Russia's horrible invasion of Ukraine is that we just have to go much, much faster to transition to renewable energy. So people don't fight wars over wind turbines and offshore wind turbines and solar panels the way they do about oil. And so this is why my leadership on climate change, I feel like we have to accelerate it. So yes, I'm the author of the EV Freedom Act. I'm the author of a bill with Sherrod Brown called the American Energy Workers Opportunity Act to try to get workers in refineries and pipelines and so forth on our side by taking care of them. We did this once when we wanted to expand, when Nancy Pelosi's predecessor, actually, Bill Burton, wanted to expand the Little Redwoods thing we had into what we have today, the national park we have today. There were loggers, there were unions that said, no, we want to do this. We want to keep logging these redwoods, kind of horrifying. But these were great jobs. We have to start right at the beginning and say, a fossil fuel worker who has a $70 an hour package of wages and benefits that they've won over generations of struggle in their union, in the pipe fitters, in the IBEW, in whatever the union is, that's to be respected. It's not their fault. We have steel workers at the Toledo refinery that, takes advantage of oil from Line 5, and they're worried. And so my bill with Sherrod Brown says, not only is this your fault, we see you, we hear you. If you're disadvantaged by this, we're going to have wage replacement for you, take care of your benefits, your health care, give you a path to your pension, your retirement, and free college for your kids, and any unlimited job training for you, so that we get people on our side. So I think we have to move much faster to renewable energy, and we do have to tackle really thorny issues about mining the minerals we need to use batteries. But there's another whole thing about this. There was a fantastic article in American Scientist or something about, we think of batteries and storage as being like a lithium battery, but actually there are many different mechanisms of moving huge blocks up and down and putting water deep in wells and drawing it up and down, and different ways to store energy and then use it, when the grid is stressed, and then, put it back and use it cyclically like this. So, I think there are many ways to expand the kind of definition of energy storage beyond those. Yes.
Can I also help you answer your question?
Please.
Chuck, currently 9% of the world's lithium is in the Imperial Valley of California. It's just a matter of being able to extract the lithium from the thermal brines that exist. And General Motors has recently invested $150 million in thermal controlled thermal resources to accomplish that. So we are likely to be able to get lithium we need right here in the United States. So
and there are multiple sources, but yes, fantastic. See, we got all the intelligence we need right in this room. Yes. Oh, it's time for me to go. This is Nicole Beatty, my campaign manager. Let's hear it for all the hard thoroughly enjoyed today. We've got, I think, 50 people coming out to canvass with Charlie Cavell and me in Ferndale tomorrow. At Charlie's house, we're staging. We're canvassing 7 days a week. We're phone banking. And this is, we're going to win this race on the ground, and it's and that's how we're going to win in November too. Thank you all very much.
Buttons and stickers over here by the sink. If you want to volunteer, see me, and we have a long time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you can leave us some things or you can. Well, good. Thanks so much for stepping in. We really appreciate it. And thanks for bearing with, some adjustments. I do want to invite our guest speaker up to the floor. His name is Jason Nolan. He's here with an organization called Rank My Vote. We have actually heard from Rank My Vote as an organization pre-pandemic. Our good friend of the club and local professor, Kevin Deegan-Krause, has spoken with us, and I know that many of you know him from the organization. But at that point, it was like purely theoretical. And now that, which is always great, right? And so now that the movement has gained a little bit more traction, Ann Arbor has recently passed some similar legislation, and the organization is trying to get Royal Oak on board. We just wanted to make sure that everyone had the information that they needed, knew what was out there, and had kind of an explanation about what this could possibly look like for us here in Royal Oak. So please welcome Jason. I'm going to turn the floor over to him. And yeah.
Thank you. So normally I do this with a PowerPoint, and so this is going to get interesting, but we will make it do here for sure.
Jason, I just want to interrupt. So for all the future speakers too, the camera just picks up like the lectern kind of blocks, so the laptop is further blocking your face. So
Okay,
if you can, yeah. Well, we can kind of see. Yeah. No, that's fine. Or also, you might just like pick up the mic
I can like roll this thing over and set it down.
Okay, yeah, that might be.
Cool. That'll just kind of help
Yeah.
on task here. So my name is Jason Nolan. I'm with an organization called Rank My Vote. Rank My Vote is a 501c3 that is trying to do a simple thing, which is adopt ranked choice voting here in Michigan. How many people, to show of hands, how many people have heard of ranked choice voting? Awesome. So I've got an educated crowd. That is fantastic. So ranked choice voting, I like to think, is like the new hot. So a lot of states are either in the process of adopting ranked choice voting, or kind of where we're at here in Michigan, where they've got an organization like a Rank My Vote that is promoting ranked choice voting. What we're currently doing as an organization, last fall, we passed ranked choice voting in the city of Ann Arbor. Years ago, the city of Ferndale passed ranked choice voting and has been kicking and screaming their way towards actually implementing it. But the bottom line is that what we're doing is that we now have a campaign here in Royal Oak, as well as Kalamazoo this year, to adopt it in those two cities. And the idea is to adopt it at the city level in as many cities as possible to A, put pressure on Lansing to either legislatively adopt ranked choice voting, or B, build momentum towards a statewide campaign in the future. So what does ranked choice voting do? I mean, ranked choice voting basically fixes what I feel is a fundamental problem, and it's a nonpartisan issue. One of the things I like about ranked choice voting is I'm like that disgruntled voter that y'all make. Okay, I'm the guy that says I don't like either of these candidates. I'm going to vote for this person because the heck with it. And of course, then I get ridiculed by my Democrat Republican friends because I ruined the election for their party. so one of the things that ranked choice voting allows you to do is it allows you to vote for who you want to vote for without having this idea of voting for the lesser of two evils or wasting your vote. We're always told we're going to waste our vote if we don't vote for somebody who's viable, right? And what that does ultimately is that reduces participation by candidates, that reduces participation by the voters. People become apathetic and they just don't vote because they feel like they don't have a choice. So ranked choice voting deals with a couple of things. Number one, it deals with the issue of we have plurality elections, meaning that you don't need to have majority support to win an election in Michigan. Okay, and we see that a lot where people win with 45, 46%. Think of a primary scenario. It's a great example where rarely in a primary, especially these last few cycles where both the Dems and Republicans have run, a dozen candidates for an election, you end up with somebody winning and becoming your candidate with maybe 30% support. What ranked choice voting does is it deals with that problem of plurality elections because it allows you to rank your vote. It allows you to say, here's who I want, but if that person doesn't win, this is the second person I'd like, or the third person I'd like. And to dispel a couple of myths about ranked choice voting, you don't have to rank your vote. You can vote like you always wanted to. So you can just say, I only want this person, nobody else, okay? Now, the nice thing is with ranked choice voting, like our regular voting, if a candidate gets more than 50% plus one of the first choice votes, game over. We don't have to do anything else because that person has a majority win, all right? So real simple. However, if nobody has a majority, when you count those first choice votes, the way that ranked choice voting works is the person with the lowest number of first choice votes is eliminated. And we look at who the people who voted for that person, who was their second choice. Okay, so use a recent election as an example. We use one that wasn't controversial at all, like Trump Clinton. That was one nobody cared about that one. So in that race, you had Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, who were the other two candidates that materially possibly impacted that election, depending on who you talk to. Okay, so if we use real simple assumptions, we assume every Jill Stein voter second choice would be Hillary Clinton, and every Gary Johnson's voter's second choice would be Donald Trump. The reality situation is that Donald Trump wins that election by a larger margin because Gary Johnson had a much larger vote than Jill Stein did. But we'll never really know because we don't vote them. So in these elections, what happens is that somebody who's a Jill Stein voter may have said, I want Jill Stein first, Hillary Clinton second. Jill Stein had the fewest votes in that. All those second choice votes would have been added to the Clinton docket and we would have kept iterating. Gary Johnson votes, the second choice vote would be added to whoever until somebody is at 50% plus one. Now, it works better visually. That's why it's hard to do this without a PowerPoint, but it fixes that problem. It's the reason that I love ranked choice voting. Like, I was that disgruntled guy who was thinking like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I found ranked choice voting. I said, hey, this is a way that we can fix elections. It's nonpartisan. It's just an upgrade to how we decide. And to me, it's much more real world of how we make decisions in real life. A lot of times when we think about things, most things that we choose, we're not just in love with one thing 100%. We're like, I'd like that one, but I'd also settle for this or this or this. And that's how we, in the real world, make practical decisions. I will tell you a really good example, and I'll have to share the PowerPoint and let you guys see it. There was an election in Maine. So Maine adopted ranked choice voting. Alaska adopted ranked choice voting. Utah, they're really going hardcore for ranked choice voting. So you can kind of get a vibe of that. The states themselves, it's not necessarily blue states or red states that are adopting ranked choice voting. It's happening across the board. In Maine, there was a state election in 2018. There were 4 candidates, a Republican, a Democrat, and 2 independents. And after the first choice, after the first set of voting had gone, the Republican candidate had 134,000 votes. The Democrat candidate had 132,000, 16,000 for one of the people, and 6,000 for the other. Nobody had a majority. Okay, you needed 144,000 votes to win. Bruce Poliquin, who was the Republican, was 10,000 short. In our current format, Bruce Poliquin, the Republican, wins that election because he had the most votes. Okay, but because it's a ranked choice vote, they said, okay, let's see who got the fewest first choice votes. A guy named Will Ford, who got a total of 6,000 first choice votes. He was obviously had a small but mighty contingent. They took his and they said, okay, what was the second choice? And then you apportioned that second choice to the remaining 3 candidates. Okay, when they did that, there was still not a majority. Okay, so nobody still had enough. And again, we're only apportioning 6,000 votes, of which not all those people even ranked their second, third, or fourth choice. It was a small number. So then we took the next lowest candidate, which was Tiffany Bond, who she had 17,000 votes almost. And when they apportioned those, the Democrat at that point actually won the race. So it did not have the majority first choice, but had the overall majority support of the electorate. And it's more representative. At the end of the day, the people of Maine wanted that person to be the candidate among the other one if you asked the right question, which was, if your person doesn't win, who would you want? Right now, we don't ask people that question, and it's really silly that we don't. So again, it takes care of the lesser of 2 evil problems. In that normal election, had you looked at that, again, we have a 2-party system, like it or not. people would have said to all those Tiffany Bond and Will Hoare voters, don't ruin it. Okay, just vote for one of the other two people because you're going to throw your vote away. I don't care that you don't like them. You pick the one you like. Pick the one that you think is not as bad as the other. Okay, that's how we talk to independents in this country. We basically either shame them or tell them that they're wrong or tell them that they're wasting their time or we tell them not to vote at all because we just basically don't even want to deal with it. And the reality of the situation is there's a ton of independents. I know I'm talking to a group of Democrats. I've given the same presentation to Republican groups and chambers of commerce and libertarians. And the reality of the situation is that at the end of the day, there's a lot of people have a lot of beliefs in this country. And if you believe in representative democracy in the big picture, not partisanship, but in the bigger picture, we want to have candidates that are everyone's candidate. I hate when people say, yeah, I didn't vote for that person, not my fault, not my fault. At the end of the day, I want to have candidates, whether I voted for them or not, that I know do represent me, because it might have been my third choice, but that's the person who ultimately has the majority support. And I think that's really, really important. It gets rid of the spoiler effect. I think as I can tell you, when we think about spoilers, Ross Perot is a classic spoiler. Ross Perot historically probably is the reason Bill Clinton won the election against Bush. Who's the most famous spoiler? Ralph Nader in Florida. So again, the reality of the situation is those people weren't spoilers. The candidate that lost didn't get enough votes. Okay, and the reality of the situation is a lot of those people, had they been able to rank their vote, likely probably supported that candidate that was blaming them for hurting their chances. So it gets rid of that spoiler problem. I like to tell people it allows you to vote with your heart and with your head. As opposed to being that conflicted situation where you're like, oh man, really don't want this person, but maybe next time they'll run somebody better. So the other thing I love about it is less negative campaigning. If you think about it, one of the things that ranked choice voting does, and we see this in real world statistics, is that it encourages more people to participate. Right now, a lot of times the parties will actually discourage candidates because they don't want to split the vote, right? You say, I don't want this person to run because then it's possible that the person on the other side can swoop in and win with 38%. Well, it gets rid of that problem. It gets rid of some of the negative campaigning that goes around it. You don't want Democrats tearing each other down in a primary and then having to, come back together and sing kumbaya and act like they didn't say the things that they said. At the end of the day, these people have a lot in common. They have more in common than they have that is different. Same thing on the Republican side or whatever thing, independent, whatever, where it's like, at the end of the day, if you're doing a ranked choice vote election, I can't be out there demonizing the Green Party and saying, don't vote for that person. I can be saying, look, as a Democrat, I support a lot of the climate initiatives of the Green Party. So you know what? I'm going to talk to those people, those green people, and I'm going to say, make me your second choice. You know what? I'm not a bad alternative to your candidate because I also support some of that agenda. So it forces people to find commonalities and do less negative. Let me tell you everything that's wrong with everybody else. The other thing it does is it encourages more participation because now you don't have to worry about this notion that you're going to be splitting this vote. Now you can say, yeah, we want more people in the race. We want more voices in the race. It gives great feedback, I think, to the two major parties, but then to the electorate in general of that. What are some of the things that people actually wanted? You actually saw that, the New York mayor race was a ranked choice voting race, and it kind of got some negative publicity because the actual, like the New York version of the Secretary of State is a mess. And so they had some problems initially tallying that vote. But the real situation is that ranked choice vote in New York worked exactly like you would expect it to work, which was there were some people on that Democratic primary who were very moderate. There were people who were very progressive. And at the end of the day, what ended up happening was that Eric Adams, who was very much a middle of the road candidate, won that election because enough people who were very left of Adams made him their second or third choice, and people who would be right of Adams also made him the second or third choice. So again, it allows to ultimately have what I would call consensus candidates that people are willing to ultimately get behind, even again if it's not their first choice. Higher voter turnout, increased voter satisfaction. So we see statistics, we see data that shows that more people will come out when you give them more choices. More people get engaged because they feel like they have a voice, and they're more satisfied with the process because they feel like their voice was heard, that their vote counted, and that it made a material difference. I had someone say to me, "Well, if you don't rank your vote would lose some weight," and I'm like, "Exactly. It absolutely would lose some weight if you just vote for your candidate and don't vote for anybody else, and they don't get 50% plus one on their first ballot. You should have made a second choice, because the people who did make a second choice are going to materially impact the outcome." And I know there's some of us who are like, ride or die, I'm only one of this person, but most people do have an alternative. Most people are open to it. So ranked choice voting is not a new concept. Ranked choice voting globally has been used in New Zealand, Scotland, Ireland, North Ireland, Malta, Australia. Some places for years. Australia's been using ranked choice voting for 3/4 of a century. Okay, so this is not some novel concept. I wish we could take credit for it, but we can't. In the United States, Maine adopted in 2016, Alaska in 2020. Tons of cities and states are adopting it all over the place. A bunch of places in California. I mentioned Utah. Utah just went off this past probably 18 months or so, and they started adopting it in almost every major city in Utah. So Utah, I'm expecting, will probably be using ranked choice voting for nationwide elections soon. Part of that comes down to the states have to look at how they want to operate. Do they want to do it at the local level? Do they want to do it at the state level? Do they want to do it at the federal level? How much they want to do it. I will say, when I'm talking to a group of Democrats and Republicans, where this should appeal to you is in the primary process. This is very, very helpful for y'all to select primary candidates in a way that everybody can ultimately feel is more fair, more representative, and again, getting to that majority candidate. Okay, that person doesn't have to say, "I've got a small but mighty 30%." Okay, I got 30% of these folks in this room that are going to vote for me. That you want to know that at the end of the day, you've got effectively a coalition. You've got 50% of this group that, barring anything else, they're going to support me over the other candidates, and it's going to force them to appeal to more people than just a group that they know are ride or die for. What are we trying to do? Our organization, as I mentioned, we've got a ballot initiative for the city of Royal Oak that we are collecting signatures for now. We need to collect, I think, is it 2,600? Did I say 2,623? I think is the number of signatures we need to collect. What we're going to do with that is that's going to put language on the ballot to make a charter change for the city of Royal Oak to adopt ranked choice voting. Where it would work for the city would be really the commission election. Technically it could be for the mayoral election as well, but you would be talking about an election with 3 or more candidates. Ranked choice voting, when you only have 2 candidates, it doesn't matter. Okay. So, but like the commission works out perfectly because usually you've got 6, 7, 8 people running for 3 open seats. And you can use that to tally majority winner 1, 2, 3 down the line. Ultimately, though, the idea here is we want to be able to demonstrate that ranked choice voting is a better way to select candidates, regardless of your political leanings. And by winning at the city level, it allows us to then place pressure at the state level and to ultimately have momentum to go on a statewide initiative. Gary, can you tell me who is the representative that's local here that introduced the ranked choice voting?
Oh, Regina Weiss over in Oak Park.
Okay. Yeah, so there are some state representatives who this is on their radar and that have actually put it out there. Again, the parties are coming around to it. I think the parties are trying to figure out, hey, it's worked well for us all these years. Do we really want to change what we've been doing? And like I said, when I talk to parties, I really appeal to the primary system because this last Democrat primary for president, I mean, what was there? I think there was at one point 12 people. They had like the 2 different debate stages, and it was crazy. And one of the things that's nice about ranked choice voting too is when you think about the use of absentee ballots, what ends up happening a lot of times is that the way our primary system works, you've got candidates who, after the first set, drop out, right? And if you voted absentee here in Michigan, your candidate may have dropped out, and you got to go spoil your ballot and go get another ballot. If you vote ranked choice, and you said, you know what, I'm going to vote for Pete Buttigieg first, and then I'm going to vote for Elizabeth Warren, then I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. And if Pete dropped out before the Michigan vote, that's all right. you already made your second choice vote. So you've got a valid vote because you've represented what you want, regardless of the dynamic of people dropping out along the way. So it saves that. It also saves money because some of these states do these instant runoff elections after the fact. Georgia did that after this last time. And so you have to turn around and spend millions all over again. You can ranked choice vote those elections and be one and done. Is there any questions? Yeah, I mean, if you plan it out, I mean, there's also things you do once you have ranked choice voting. You can reimagine a lot of things, but the first thing is just the mechanics of ranked choice voting allow you to then think about, okay, how can you apply this in a way that's more efficient, more effective?
So we have a question from online. Julie Chun. So she put this question in before you mentioned the New York race. So there's something at the end. But, okay. Why not focus efforts on typically red areas? Does the modeling show RCV would eliminate candidates like Peter Meyer in favor of more extreme candidates? The New York mayoral race RCV results was a disaster for the city.
Well, again, I would argue that it wasn't a disaster for the city because guess what? The majority candidate won. You know, I guess you're offending 50% of the people of New York City if you think that that was a disaster. So, you know, at the end of the day, you get who you get, right? And the nice thing with ranked choice voting is that instead of a situation where a candidate won with 30% support and threads that needle, which has happened, and now all of a sudden it might be a disaster. You have a candidate who won the majority. Might not have been your candidate, but nonetheless, that's who won.
Yes, I agree with your overall argument. I actually very much agree with that. But I'm going to ask you an emotional question now.
Yeah.
And, a little bit different than the argument. So sometimes as an advocate, it's nice to have a huge candidate who's outside the mainstream, elected and advocating for that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, that feels very good. It's always good, no, but emotionally, it's satisfying to me sometimes. Does this eliminate the possibility of that extreme advocate we like from being able to win a primary or being able to win office? That's my question. Your reasoning is excellent, and I agree, but that's my emotional question.
Yeah, I don't think it eliminates it. What I think it does is I think it allows those people to have a representative vote still. So, for example, take a candidate who is, you know, has an extreme position, left or right, in a partisan election. Okay, they've got a core group of followers that are going to vote for them. Okay, regardless of what their friends tell them. That's my guy. That's my gal. That's what I'm going with. Now, right now, they vote for that person in a ranked choice voting setting. Think about this, and use Donald Trump as a perfect example. The reality situation is the GOP did not want Donald Trump to be their candidate. Donald Trump became their candidate because he started winning primaries with 28, 31, 29, 33. And after a while, what happens? Well, the way our system works right now is like, well, hold on a second. Jeb Bush dropped out. That was our boy. That Jeb Bush was supposed to win that election. If you ask any GOP operator, okay? And then Ted Cruz was supposed to win that election. If you ask, there was a whole bunch of people that were supposed to win that election, not named Donald Trump. And the reality situation is he had a fervent 25 to 30%, a whole hell of a lot of states. And that emotional thing actually allowed him to get that candidacy, allowed him to win that nomination. In a ranked choice voting scenario, Donald Trump probably doesn't win a lot of those elections because of the fact that the Trump person would then vote two for this person, this person, this person. There was a bunch of people that were Trump and nobody else. And there was a bunch of people that were anybody but Trump. and so he was either going to be ranked first or not, you know? And so that's where it comes in. And ultimately, again, it gets to a majority. The other thing, you talk about the emotional candidate. If 50% plus one want that emotional candidate, guess what? They're not an emotional candidate anymore. They're a viable candidate.
When you count the votes, for instance, would our voting machines be able to count first and second choice?
Yes.
And so then if nobody gets 50% plus one, do you have to count those by hand then?
No, the software now in all of the counties in Michigan, the software is now able to tally a ranked choice vote. The technological capacity is available. It is that at the state and the county level, there are still impediments to allowing it to happen. The cities, okay, and Royal Oak is a city, and Kalamazoo is a city, and Ann Arbor is a city, as opposed to township. The cities have what's called the Home Rule City Act in the state constitution that allows them to adopt ranked choice voting, but townships can't. And so that's why we're picking cities. And a city like Royal Oak is a prominent Royal Oak city that we feel like would be a good one.
But there isn't gonna have to be a hand count.
It doesn't have to be a hand count at all. No,
Okay.
it's completely machine count.
Okay, so when it counts number 1, number 2, and number 3, would it automatically add the 2s and 3s to a candidate? So that
It
has
only
to be-
counts the one. Think about it like
Okay,
this. Think about it
so-
like a column. It only
So you
counts the
have to
one.
do something by hand then.
No.
If nobody gets 50%, how do you do, how are that?
So
numbers-
here's how it works. Count all that first column votes. Nobody's at 50% plus one. Now the computer looks at the person who had the lowest number
That's
of
what
first
I'm
place
asking,
votes.
the computer will
And
go
it
ahead
breaks
and do
apart that vote and says, who was the second choice of these people? And it apportions that second
That's-
choice to everybody.
That's what I'm asking, is that the voting machine will automatically do.
Correct.
it somehow.
Correct.
Well, that could be-
Yeah, I don't fully understand it in terms of Royal Oak with regards to city commissions. So if we have six candidates running for 3 positions, how do you apply ranked choice voting in that scenario?
So in that scenario, if you rank choice vote hey, we have 3 people or 7 people running for 3 seats, you're still going to have the capacity to, like right now, you probably say vote for no more than 3, right?
Right, and the top 3 vote getters win.
Yeah. And so with the ranked choice voting system, you could do a couple of things. You could look at it like a primary and say, okay, let's count who has the majority. Okay, let's rank it and see who actually has a 50% plus 1 of the total vote. And then take the next 2 highest beyond that. Okay, so in that scenario, you could still rank everybody, figure out who is the majority winner of that group of 7. And then you could, the 2 next highest would be your second, third. But you
So
would still
everyone would
require a
have to have
majority.
50% order.
Yeah, one person would be 50% plus 1 out of that group of 7. And again, it's more helpful graphically, so I apologize.
I absolutely think that this is a great idea for, being able to have more participation, have people feel like their vote counts. One concern that I just have, and I wonder, this is kind of beyond when you actually start enacting ranked choice voting, is that we have such a suspicious electorate at this point that even when a precinct comes in and the vote jumps, people are like, wait a second, my candidate was winning until that, that they were stuffing ballots over there. So how do we inoculate people against that? Oh my goodness, the ranked choice,
Yeah.
Put in, and now all the totals are much different than they were the last time I saw the totals coming in at, an hour ago.
No, I get it. And that's a great question. Very perceptive, very real. I think the problem right now is that there has been this suspicion cast on the validity of the elections in general. It's one of the reasons as a group, we were like, it is not the right time to try to push this at the state level because people are going to demonize it as this is too difficult, this is too hard, this seems, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
If I don't understand it, it's bad.
Yeah.
And so you're 100% right. There's an educational component to this that has to occur. That's one of the reasons we're doing the citywide to try to be able to put some wins on the board and then use these opportunities to educate people. But you're 100% right. Like, it's important that people believe in the election integrity first and foremost, and then they can adopt a better process.
Thanks. I have 2 questions. So first off, I'm a little concerned a ballot is probably going to grow a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And there's, especially like the city election, there's 9 black state elections. Yeah, that means a substantial drop off. In city elections, once someone votes for mayor, they might go vote for the next session. God forbid that there's a special election that they're not going to vote for. Although, Monica destroyed everyone with that. So have you seen a voter drop off when you start using ranked choice voting? How does that impact voter drop off? Because the ballot will be longer.
Yes.
So you know that the long ballot, people stop.
Yeah, well, and I think when you see it in practice is that there's going to be a small group of people that are going to literally, let's say you had 5 people running for a mayor, okay? There's going to be a small group of people that will rank all 5, okay? there's gonna be a whole lot of people that rank their top 2 or their top 3. And so you're right, and it's okay. That's the thing that I like about ranked choice voting is it's okay. You don't have to keep ranking. It's just your vote, your choices stop at wherever you stop. So if you vote for Joe Smith as your only candidate, he doesn't get 50% plus 1. When they go through, iterate, and see, okay, who was the second choice of the lowest among the candidates? You didn't make a second choice.
Yeah, sure, but have you seen people stop voting? Has it
Down ballot.
No, you don't see people just stop. You don't just see people stop. You see people not rank as many choices, just like you would see. It's the same concept, where people just kind of just like, okay, I'm done. You know.
So then, so my second question is kind of mechanics about this. I said the farmer's market last week. Yeah, it might have been you. I talked to someone who said, "Oh, this language has been approved by the city clerk and the city attorney."
Yeah.
I happen to know that's a lie. Like I know flat out our city has not approved it. And I get a little wary of putting language on a ballot that hasn't gone through. We have a charter review. This is a amendment to our constitution. Why take it all goes to the charter review and say, hey, it's this idea, and let them write language that changes our government practice.
I get that. I mean, I know that from my emails that I've been included on from the city clerk. Like I have actual emails that they saw this language, that it was the same language that we used in Ann Arbor. So
Our city clerk is right here.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
has told me that she didn't receive this language until last night.
We got the draft language, but nothing's been officially approved, and we were told that people are going out there saying, oh, the city clerk and the attorney have approved this language, and it has not been.
This is what we have been told. I mean, I can tell you it's the same language that we use in Ann Arbor and Kalamazoo. So I apologize if there's, again, I haven't been the one heading that up, so I only have limited information. But the emails that I saw were that this was the same language, and there were some changes made to it that I didn't think it was controversial.
I have a follow-up question, and I'm the city commissioner.
Yeah.
I was involved in an election years ago when there were 12 people running for 3
Yeah.
seats. So, philosophically, I think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
But procedurally, I've got real serious issues with the procedures that you guys have been handling. Your petition has 3 pages attached to it of very fine print of language that will amend our charter. We have a very wonky charter. It doesn't even have language that tells you how to amend the charter by initiative petition, which is what you guys are doing, which is unusual. So I just wonder, how confident are you that the language that you have drafted actually will work when our city attorney hasn't even seen it yet, at least didn't get a copy until last night? That's procedurally a problem that I have. The second one, and you can answer these together, is we know that even though Ann Arbor has approved this in we can't adopt it and actually make it work until the legislature amends the Home Rule Cities Act and Michigan election law to allow cities to implement this. We have a Republican legislature who is not inclined to do progressive things. How confident are you that the legislature is actually going to make this work when the cities end up passing it? And how are you going to explain that to the voters that, well, you might pass this, but the legislature still has to act, so we may not actually get it.
So you are correct that this requires the legislature to act. We believe legally that the Home Rule City Act allows this to happen without the legislature. And so one of the reasons that we're passing this at the city level is either A, to put pressure on the legislature, and or B, at some point bring legal action to say, here, you need to allow these cities to do this. Because the way our attorneys have read this is that it's allowable without action at the city level. And we've been explaining, I've been very transparent with people that this essentially puts Royal Oak or Ann Arbor or Kalamazoo or any of these cities in the queue that when they flip the switch, y'all can do ranked choice voting. You don't need to adopt it or amend it at that point.
I just want to say, these are friends.
Yeah.
They're reaching out to work together.
Yeah.
Please reach back out to them and make this work well.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I'm all about it.
Because I think we got a good team of people who are probably willing to help you on this process. They're friends.
Yeah.
And, I think
Oh, no, for sure. 100%. I want to make sure we're doing it the right way.
you said earlier that Ferndale has adopted this and then now using it.
Right. Okay, say that again.
You said earlier that Ferndale has adopted ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
And they're not currently using it. Why are they not using it?
Yeah. Gary, can you explain a little the history of the Ferndale situation?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So Ferndale adopted this in 2004 and went to the state and said, okay, Bureau of Elections, we need you to sanction this. And at that time, the Bureau of Elections said, no, we just can't do that. They had a lot of internal emails back and forth. And actually, frankly, we have copies of those emails now through FOIA, where they couldn't come up with any really reason why they would or shouldn't approve this, but they didn't, and they haven't. I'm sorry.
I was approving it.
How's that? Oh, so Ann Arbor and Kalamazoo, well, Kalamazoo is a situation like here. It hasn't been passed yet, but Ann Arbor and Ferndale are in this same boat. They want to do it, but the Bureau of Elections is essentially just dragging their feet for what we believe is. But anyway, the point is that A, we believe that this can be done without legislative action, but B, Regina Weiss has a bill. Is it going to pass this year? Not a chance in hell. Is it going to pass next year under a ungerrymandered legislature? Chances are much better. But it does require action, or it requires some legal leverage for the Bureau of Elections to do what they've said internally they can do, but have chosen not to do.
Yeah, so they're in a similar situation where they've passed it, but they're basically still awaiting permission to implement. One more, and then it looks like you guys have one.
That's, I was coming to ask you, are you available to hang out? Like,
Yeah,
after the meeting?
yeah.
Okay, sure, yeah. No, please stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like this system of partisan races would increase the interest of third-party candidates. Has that been the experience?
Absolutely.
Oh,
For sure. It's one of the things I like about it.
Could you repeat the question? Some people can't hear the original.
So he's saying that ranked choice voting will increase the amount of third-party candidates.
Or at least interest.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So it absolutely does that. Because again, what it does is it removes the barrier of, think about the two parties who actually sue third parties to keep them off the ballot. Right? I mean, that's how we operate in our democracy right now. Democrats and Republicans sue libertarians and Greens in court and say, you can't put your candidates on the ballot. It's ridiculous. Now, they don't have to do that. And two, the people who have an interest in a third party can vote without that concern of, I'm going to waste my vote. I don't want to waste my vote. I really love this green candidate, but I don't want to waste my vote because I know in the current climate they can't win. Now I can support that person. I can campaign for that person. I can vote for that person, and I can then vote for the pragmatic or practical candidate as well. And over time, that will allow for hopefully a situation where you have viable third parties. Maybe in a two-party system where I'm talking to Democrats, we don't want that. But ultimately, the real situation is that we want people voices heard, and more voices, more choices, more opportunity for not only different political affiliations, but men, women, different ethnic groups that can be more represented in their own communities and have a voice.
Yeah, just before you step away, so as you're circulating the system that you currently have, can you just give like a quick, what is it that you tell people as you're collecting signatures? So it's a potential charter amendment, right?
Correct.
Citizen initiative, charter amendment, and then it puts us in line. You said
It essentially will adopt ranked choice voting for Royal Oak when the state allows ranked choice voting, is the simple explanation. So at that point, Royal Oak won't have to do anything. The commission won't have to do anything. You won't have to think about it. It'll be in the books and available to be turned on once the state says it's okay. And again, we believe that the state doesn't have to take action. We believe that legally we can tell the state, we can, if we had to, go to the state and say, look, you have to allow ranked choice voting to happen because they're cities. Okay, and that's where there's that disagreement. So,
Just real quick. What's the deadline for submitting your petition?
August 2nd. So we're planning on, obviously being well ahead of that, but August 2nd. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I know, per usual, right, we can have these conversations endlessly, because we're educated, interesting people. So Jason and his team are gonna hang out, right, be available for some more conversation, hopefully, as we move on.
Oh, just try to be taller, Laura.
Oh.
If you-
Okay.
Yeah, oh, that's better.
They don't need to see it. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. We're still making this work. We finally got the tech to work, and the power's on.
I don't know.
The camera's in the-
I know, but I don't want to. I can't hold this the entire meeting. Yeah,
I don't think they don't need to see all that. So we're thrilled to have we're thrilled to have had Jason and his team.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
We appreciate it. Yay.
There we go.
I cannot be taller. But all of this is always good, right? For us to have these conversations and to know what's out there. So we'll make sure that we continue to follow this conversation and get everybody the information that they need. I do want to open up the floor for some new member introductions. We are finally back to in-person events, in-person meetings. If there's anybody here that this is either their very first time in a meeting or your first time in a while, and you'd like to say hi and what brings you, I would encourage you to speak up now. If you're not comfortable saying hello, we're still thrilled to have you and glad to have you on the team. Anybody that wants to say hello and introduce themselves? We also have some new faces who are candidates and people joining us and things like that too, which we will get to very, very shortly. Nobody wants to say hi? Anybody online that wants to say hello? No? Okay. We know you. You'll have your shot. I do want to introduce someone that I know is newish, right, to us. Mitzi, why don't you say hello now and tell us why you're joining us? This is Mitzi Hoffman. She's joining us. She's the your title president or chair? President of the Friends of the Royal Oak Public Library. She's got some important updates about a very significant millage that's going to be on our August ballot. You want to come up here or speak to me? Come on. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I go way back with the Democratic Club, back when we rented a very small room and we had 10 people. We were really excited. So it goes back to many people who have been office holders since then. So, for many years, I think as long as I've lived here, 20 years, I've been passionate about our library. And one of the things I'd like to just survey before I start talking about other things is, in the last 3 months, how many of you, raising a hand, have been physically in the library or have used a resource that's been available since then? Okay, pretty much preaching to the choir. But so I know there's a lot of support, and there's going to be a yes vote because there is a millage, partly renewal, partly new, on the ballot August 2nd. So miraculously, in less than 2 months, there is a committee now that is trying to pull off informing people and encouraging people to vote yes. The nice thing about what's going to be on the ballot, not sure it's finalized yet, but it's going to be only about this long. And you're not going to have to think really hard about what you want to vote for. And part of the thing that's really nice this year, the previous millage was for 20 years. This time, it's for 10 years. But part of it, the large part of it, is a renewal. rather than having to say, this is a totally new proposal and have people saying, oh my God, more of my taxes are going up. Most of it is a renewal. Give you some numbers here. 0.8837 mils is the renewal. 0.1163 is the additional language that's going to get us back to where we were when the millage was first passed. Ends up with a total of about $3,266. And since it was first passed, actually, I spent 9 years on the library board. And I think all of you that are familiar with the library know what good stewards of the money the library board of trustees has been. There was a recent renovation that actually was going to take place while the library was open. You know, we had to close because of COVID. And it was going to be about 2 weeks, closing certain sections of the library. Actually, the fact that the library did close really helped the renovation happen, and it lasted a little more time, a lot more time than 2 weeks. But the result has been great. We have been affected by the something related to the supply chain because the renovation is not complete. There's actually plans to have a fireplace and some really comfortable chairs to sit in and be as serene as hopefully you already are when you're at the library. Okay. About a week and a half ago, about 10 people got together and met to form the committee to support the passage of the millage. And for those of you who've been candidates for anything, it's less than 2 months until August 2nd, and organizing and pulling off a campaign gets warp speed. And, you know, part of the reason that I'm cautiously optimistic about things, and hopefully everybody here is optimistic about it, is that we feel already that there is a lot of support out there in the community, and that it is very likely that this millage is going to pass and hopefully pass by a large majority. One of the things we are concerned about is an opposition that is actually happening nationwide, and that's related to banning books. So if there's an opposition that is organized in any fashion, that's what we're looking at. And so hopefully part of our education and promotion campaign is going to be able to address that. And hopefully if there's anything said about that, it will be a small number of people that will be on that side. Okay, one of the things that is crucial for any campaign is fundraising. And we started with $0. The Friends of the Royal Oak Public Library are scheduling a meeting, and we are hopefully, actually, we are in better shape financially than we were 2 years ago. Well, not as, okay, let me reword this. Since the library has reopened, the Friends have been able to have book sales. We have opened our shop again. So financially, just in the time that the library has been reopened, we've been able to get enough money that we're going to hopefully donate thousands, not sure what the number is yet, to the campaign. Because one of the things that we is probably the most important thing that we do is have some lift. And I think all the candidates for office previously understand that. We need to get, one of the good things about the way this is going to work is that the library is going to be sending out and will have available informational, detailed informational literature about what the campaign is about. Actually, this number of people, about 10 people that met a week and a half ago, we have formed a committee. And so we can go beyond education and we can say, vote yes on the millage. So there's going to be a lot of information out there, and hopefully it will include and help all of you be advocates and information sources for the friends of your own, and in any way possible, help with the passage. Open the pledge. Let's see. We will need volunteers. We will do some door knocking. Somewhere along the line, I said, well, I would be interested in helping with door knocking. As you know, that probably means I'm in charge of the volunteers. I think it's going to be a more friendly audience at the doors. We're hoping, I believe there are candidates that if they are going door to door, will also support the library and have their lit and have the discussion about the millage be part of what they're doing. So that the committee that has formed is interested individuals, a number of which are here in this room. So they will be sources of information as well. So I think that's about it. I'm going to ask Lauren to put the more detailed information online so that you can donate to the campaign, and we can get the lit printed. And yes, Brandon.
So there's two questions. One, if you move the library back to its own location, is this ideal at 4?
I'm having a hard time
I
hearing.
said it was a joke. We move the library back to its own location.
No, I think that building's occupied. Instead, the library started in somebody's house, so we've come a
Just
long
not
way.
its ideal location for us. But second, is there do you have an online presence, like a social media that people can go to learn about?
There will be. There are, okay, and you people here would know more than I do about this, so.
There's both Instagram and Facebook.
What's it called?
And they're cute.
What's it
It's
called?
you can follow us on both Facebook and you can follow the organization on both Facebook and Instagram at ROPL Vote Yes. The slogan that the Yes Committee has adopted is Love Our Library. Like Mitzi said, we're not too concerned about the support that exists for the library. We just want to make sure that we're vocal about it, right? We want the 75% of us that just raise our hands that we use the library frequently to make sure that we're telling our friends and neighbors and people at the farmers market and people in line at Holiday and anybody that will talk to us, right, about the things that we love about going there and the resources that we use, because it's so much more than just checking out books. And we want to make sure that we're highlighting that. So we're asking for the help.
Oh,
Sorry.
was the slogan "Love Our Library"? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, Love Our Library.
Oh,
And
yes.
and you can find us at ROPL Vote Yes on all social media platforms.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, the same thing about it. The group I'm following is called Love Our Library.
You can find it both ways. Yeah, you can search ROPL Vote Yes. That's the handle for all social media. You can also find Love Our Library Royal Oak. Royal Oak Library will pop up that way too.
And hopefully with this information and some information in writing, all of you very soon will go online and make a donation. Because we need it. Because we want to get things out.
Thanks so much, Mitzi. When we talk about fun fact, right? When we talk about like dedication to our city and people like Mitzi, right, who have been involved in so many layers of supporting our public resources as she has, like she said, to see our Dunn Club go from 10 to over, several hundred people, right, in membership, but typically, around 100 people in our meetings, even straight through the 2 years of the pandemic, we could be really proud, right, of the things that people like her have done. The treasurer for the Vote Yes committee right now was also on the village committee 20 years ago, and he had the original brochure that they circulated 20 years ago that we built some of our language off of. So like the love for this runs deep. And I just think that that's wonderful. Next up, I want to invite a new guest. Dorian Tyus is joining us from the Michigan Democratic Party. He's got a few updates for us about a new initiative called Voter Protection Team. He wants to make sure that we are on board with how we protect these elections coming up. So Dorian's gonna talk to us, and then we'll talk a little bit about redistricting and precincts. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Dorian Ties from the Michigan Democratic Party. I want to talk a little bit really quickly, because I know you guys have a long agenda, talk about a couple of important points that we're going to have, specifically with our voter protection team and how we plan to support and engage our voters and the clerks for this upcoming August primary. So specifically, we have one update that I wanted to let you all know about is we have an upcoming event on June 14th. We're going to have Governor Whitmer come and speak to our voter protection program and talk a little bit about why we need to have folks engaged at this particular time. This is an educated crowd. I don't have to let you all know the threats that we have as it relates to our democracy. But what we've seen across the board is that in the past, as we had our voter protection teams, which are the groups of individuals that go to polling locations, absentee counting boards, and ensure that the rights of every voter is protected, either through ensuring that election inspectors or election workers do their job correctly, or protect against any type of intimidation or things of that nature, unnecessary challenges from, in many cases, Republican challengers that are in polling location and absentee counting boards. So it's so important at this particular time as we move forward to have dedicated volunteers like yourselves engaged in this particular process. Going back to the event on June 14th, Governor Whitmer is going to be there talking about some of the threats, why it's so important for us to engage in this election, why this midterm is so critical. As many of you all know, there's been tons of bad bills in the legislature that they're trying to push. And they've been trying to do that since 2021. And the only thing that stopped the Republican-controlled Michigan legislature from passing a lot of terrible legislation that would make it difficult for you and I to vote is because Governor Whitmer is there and she can sign the deal, right? So she's going to be there talking about those threats. We're going to give more information about our program, which includes our trainings that we have for our challengers. Those trainings will be online, and I'm going to send more links to our email address for the Royal Oak email address so you can sign up and pass it along to your friends. Another thing that I also wanted to talk about is with some of our upcoming trainings. Our trainings are about maybe 45 minutes. Let me be on that. About 75 minutes. I'd rather it be shorter and you guys say he didn't tell me something wrong as opposed to me undercutting it. So I want to be respectful of your time, and we're respectful of your time. But once you're trained, you're ready to go. You can participate and support the party in Royal Oak or across the state or wherever you will find your needs or time will allow during the period of early voting, which is 40 days before Election Day. And what's interesting and why I bring that up right now and why it's so important is that our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, just recently released some guidance as it relates to challenger rights and duties, which she does periodically before an election. And one of the things that's been established at this particular time, and we have a clerk in the office, so they can, I hope, affirm this, is that now challengers can be in clerk offices, right? Because of some of that guidance, she's made that position. So we don't know what that's going to look like. Before, during the 40-day period, you were able to have poll watchers, which are different from poll challengers. They have less rights and have a designated space and things of that nature. But poll challengers have more responsibilities and duties under the law, Michigan election law, whereby they can do challenges and things of that nature. So having them in a clerk's office during the 40 days of early voting is something that would be very different, right? And so we need to have volunteers across the state that's willing to also participate during early voting. So if there's any issues, we know that we can rectify that and work with our partners to ensure that every eligible voter can cast a ballot that counts and will not be intimidated to cast that ballot, which is our free right under the Constitution and what we should be standing for as a society. But what we're seeing is that there's a lot of efforts not only on, as it relates to discouraging folks to vote, but also election subversion, right? The way that votes are counted and disrupting that process, which includes having challenges at the AV counting boards and things of that nature to make sure that there's no delay in how processing is as it relates to ballots is going. And the reason that's so important is because what we're starting to see is a narrative that our elections are rigged and things obviously are undermined, as we all have seen that. And that narrative is being driven by a lot of different factors, which includes election subversion, disinformation as it relates to what our election system is, and then also making sure us as knowledgeable Dems that we go out to the community and really educate individuals on how safe, secure, and how our clerks are doing a great job in terms of making sure that votes are counted and done timely and in a fashion that is to be proud of. So I wanted to talk about that. I'm going to get all that information to you all. We appreciate you all supporting the party as well as supporting your community members, to be quite honest, at polling locations across the city. And my hope as we continue to push down this road as it relates to ensuring folks that elections are safe, secure, and should be something that we celebrate and participate as a society. Being a good citizen is voting and participating. And so with that being said, I think it's imperative on all of us to be educated and to inform our neighbors, friends, and family about it so that they all participate and feel comfortable with it. With that, peace and love. I appreciate you all.
I just wanna make a comment. I don't know how many people read the Politico article this week. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's really important that we try to get involved. Now, I'm a person, I wasn't a poll worker, and I think everyone should be a poll worker at some point. Like at 18, you should all be, everyone should be a poll worker so they see how it works, and then no one would be thinking that they're rigged. However, I'm really concerned about all of the Republican, them getting together and putting all of these people in already biased against the legitimacy of the election, and that they're going to start challenging voters just as they even come in.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I was moving a little fast. That was on my list of things to get to. I apologize for not talking about that. But many of you probably have read about the Political article that talks about RNC trained election inspectors that are actually, so election workers. They're training them to be election workers. They're going to work in democratically held locations, basically where there's more Dem votes than the other. Place them in positions on the clerk's office or submit them on a list that the party gets to submit by law. And then the clerks have to choose from that particular list and then put them in place. And as a result of their training, they're going to attempt to undermine the processes in these different locations, AV counting boards, polling locations. And as a result of that undermining, we're going to see a lot of issues with votes, and the big lie is going to continue to spread, and they're going to have all this different information. And the issue is, I'm going to want to kind of go deep into it, is that what I think is the biggest issue here is, one, they're able to stop folks from voting. They can long line, people get discouraged, they can't vote, they go away, more Dem votes that are gone. Another issue is they can work together with challenges, right, to gum up more big lie stories. And so you have someone on the clerk's office that's going to attest under, they're going to attest as it relates to that the testimony is true or not. They're going to say that this happened, and they're going to try to affirm that. It's going to continue to build these big lies, and it's going to be in oversight committees like we saw for the 2020 election and those things on the state level and the federal level. Because Michigan is going to be, in my opinion, one of the stomping grounds on where they're really obviously trying to undermine our election across the board. Michigan ground zero, right? And so as a result of this, this is a huge issue. With the party, our position is obviously we want to have challenges there, but we also want to have committed Dems there on location that have done this before in clerk's offices to participate. And as a result of COVID, we saw a lot of our dedicated volunteers have to fall off for obvious health reasons. And obviously these things are not as well as we would like them now, but we still need to make sure, specifically with this midterm, that we are engaged and we are supporting our clerks in the way that they need to be supported. Good civic-minded folks that actually do not want to dismantle the system that makes our government work. And that's how serious it is. Like a lot of people like to say it's a political issue. Yes, you have political parties, but this is a fundamental issue as it relates to the everyday way we engage in society. If you undermine our voting process, who we put in place to make decisions, and then you gum it up with disinformation, you have across the world prototypes of governments that are set up that way. And I don't even need to say their names. You know that. And so as a result of that, we have to be engaged. And so thank you so much for bringing that up. What we're trying to do is encourage people that are civic minded to get engaged and support our clerks and being on these lists and things of that nature. When we submit that, and that's something as it relates to our election law, there's a lot of things that are archaic that need to change. And obviously it's Republican led, so it's difficult to get good stuff through, right? So that's why obviously why we got to flip the legislature and get people involved. It's just an ongoing fight. We all know that. But to your point, it's definitely a huge issue. I am interested to hear from clerks and clerks associations on how they are planning to deal with this issue. I do not know how they're going to do that, but what we can do is support them in which ways we can. And I think that's the best way to go about it.
Oh, I have a question. Is it would encouraging absentee voting make this better or worse? Like, which is more likely to get challenged?
I think absentee voting makes things better, just in general. 40 days of early voting when people can go in, hand in their ballot, make sure that on election day it's going to get tabulated. I think that's great. But like I said before, there is a twist where you can have challenges now in clerk's offices. And during the 40 days of early voting, if it's not a satellite office, generally you're going into a clerk's office to drop off your ballot. And so we'll see what that looks like. But nonetheless, we got to support our clerks and engage. And I'm looking forward to hearing a lot of guidance from our Secretary of State on how she's going to deal with it. That's why it's another reason, obviously, we need to get all these people reelected. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I have been a full worker election in the past, but what I've encountered in our work, there are also challenges from the Michigan Democratic Party to operate in the election space. So what is stopping the MVP from countering essentially and deterrent to future election challenges? Basically, do this open vote the same way in Republican areas, or is that already happening? What's the impact?
Yeah, so let me go back to our philosophy. Our philosophy is we want everyone to vote. The Michigan voter protection team is basically we want to ensure every eligible ballot can be cast and counted, right? And so as it relates to things that we engage with, yes, we want to put forward experienced, committed Dems in polling locations or to support them at AV counting boards because they're Democrats, right? But we're not sending them with training, arming them to undermine everything that is established on the books in law and supported by the Constitution. And that's the difference, right? No one, at least in my opinion, can argue someone going to advocate for their views and positions, but actively trying to undermine the system, right? And dismantle the way that the processes are going. And let me say this, many folks that are participating in AV counting boards and polling locations, they're everyday volunteers, right? They're everyday folks that say, I'm going to volunteer on election day and engage. And so that's what they're undermining. So as a result, to your specific point, is there anything happening like that in Republican locations? No, not necessarily, not to my knowledge at all. And specifically, I'll say what we do is we want to focus on making sure that places where we know the Dems are going to show up and vote, that their vote is protected. So that's the way that we operate and engage. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great question. like you said, no need to like convince in this room.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have to know how we can do more than just be enraged
And
online.
not only
right?
that, just really briefly before I leave, we gotta tell our friends and neighbors. That's our job. So I'm gonna let my little guy get out of here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Full candidate mode there.
Oh, this was for me. Yeah, incredibly important. I know that was a new voice for us, but we just felt really strongly that was, we just got word very last minute that he was going to be able to join us. And so I'm just thrilled that we were able to highlight that. And I will be sharing a bunch more information. Willie Masher. Oh, just locked up. William, did you need Ashers? Hi. Did you want to say anything real quick? Talk to your PDs? Okay, great. William Asher is our precinct delegate liaison. Let's get a duck out of here. Woo!
This will be really quick. Precinct delegates have been canvassing in Royal Oak. They get canvases, they get canvas lists for their precincts. So they can actually meet their neighbors, advocate for Democratic candidates. Right now, the only candidates they're advocating for are the governor and the secretary of state and the other one, attorney general. But as we go forward, we'll be advocating for candidates, especially after the primary, be advocating for candidates all the way up and down the ballot, and for I believe for proposals, petitions, and amendments. And stuff. So that's what we're doing, and we have a link we put in the email, which will allow people to go to the one campaign and get specific canvases for our precincts. The other thing I want to talk about is this. We finished our recruiting, and unfortunately, as a result of recruiting and turnover in the precinct delegate ranks, we have 31 precinct delegates of a total of 136 possibles. And it's not too late though, because anybody who wants to be a precinct delegate, wants to engage with our Democratic base, turn out to vote like Andy Levin was talking about earlier. That's the biggest thing in this off-year election is getting people to vote. So what we have is the map, and it has a bunch of zeros, especially at the north end of town. Like precinct 24 has 0 precinct delegates out of the possible 4, 0 and 5 in precinct 21. My precinct, number 2, just has 2 precinct delegates, Brandon and myself. And then we also have Boston. There's 5 precincts there, and only 1 precinct delegate for the whole city. I don't know if we have any Boston residents here, but if we do. Are you a precinct delegate?
Yeah.
Anyway, so bottom line is, if you're not a precinct delegate, please consider doing it. The process is to sign an affidavit to be a write-in candidate, and prior to the election, you have to have it notarized. But actually, on election day, any poll worker, and I'm a poll worker also, as well. Any poll worker can pretend to be a notary and witness your document on election day. Poll workers all take an oath. The oath just lasts until midnight or whenever they stop. So anyway, you can sign an affidavit and become a write-in candidate, and then one vote.
Write yourself in.
No.
Everybody, but do we have to call the bunch of the office ahead of time to get our list, or can we just go in there and get it? That's all contact Abby. We just go in there and get the list.
It's best to contact them first, because
Okay.
the office isn't manned at all times.
Okay.
But yeah, and also that gives them a chance to go into the computer and set up a precinct. What they did for me is they carved my precinct up into like 17 turfs, and I'm walking those turfs once a week. Something like that, and just distributing literature. And as time goes on, we'll be talking about other things, maybe the library issue with our constituents, and generating interest about those things.
So we'll be sure to send out those specific precincts and the maps if you're not 100% sure where you fall. Right, we've got all sorts of great user-friendly maps that we can help you find where it's at. Precinct delegate is a really easy way to get involved at a very base level of the party. I want to turn the floor over to any candidates that we have joining us. We are thrilled to be welcoming even more and more people into our circles here. I do want to just give a quick shout out. Reggie was here and unfortunately had to duck out to another meeting. He was a little bit hesitant about saying anyways because he's running for the new 5th. So he's just that very, very little corner of Royal Oak, but it still is, incredibly important. And even he was like, can you just tell me who's in the 5th and I'll just hand him one of these. But I think that there's value in us all knowing, right, and helping each other out, because this is a new situation for us as a club to have to bounce around to so many different interests, right, and know the candidates in races, even where we might not live. And so it's good for us, right, because we might know people who live in the 5th or be out walking for other reasons. And it's always helpful for us. So Reg Davis, he's got some lit out on the front table. If you live in the 5th or know people in the 5th or just want to have it on hand, he did leave that for us, and we'll be in touch, throughout the season. Any other candidates that want to jump up and join us? Hey, Millie. I know we're running kind of long. If you do need to duck out, we completely understand, but we just had a ton of information to fit in.
I was hoping you were going to say candidate reports next, because I do have to duck out. I'm headed to Ferndale Pride. We're tabling for my church, St. Gerard's there. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys there, and there now and there again later. So I'm Melanie Macy. I'm running in the 7th pink district there. So this is where it starts in Royal Oak, and then it goes down pretty into Detroit. I have some lit that I'll put out on the table. You can see my district, you can learn about me. I think most people in this room know me already. I'm the Royal Oak City Commissioner, and I've been a longtime member of the Democratic Club and coming here. I'm doing this with your help and your support, and I really appreciate all of the help and support I've received so far. I'm raising money and I'm canvassing right now. You can go to my website, melaниemacy.com, to learn more. I will be Andy Levin was talking about the canvas at Charlie Cabell's house tomorrow. Charlie Cabell has also endorsed me, so I will also be there. I'd like to come canvas for all the whole team. I think Mallory's team is also going to be there. So you're welcome to do that. You can send me an email. You can also find it on Levin's page. So I'm happy to take any quick questions. I'm sorry, I'm sort of racing out of here. I'm already a little bit late. Does anybody have any questions for me? I feel like, again, these are faces I know. Okay, oh, you're the best. All right, I'm going to leave my list. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, go to my website, and I'll see you again next month.
Hello, my name is Michelle Cook, and I am running for Royal Oak School Board. I want to start off by thanking everybody who was here last month who signed my petition to get on the ballot. I was able to turn those in, and so official candidate now for the school board. I'll run through a little bit of things that I have done that I feel I will bring my experience to the school board. I am a teacher. I teach grade. I've been a teacher for 25 years now. So I feel like I really understand what's going on in our classrooms, in our schools, the concerns that there are, the challenges, the opportunities. I was also the union president of my local for many years, and I negotiated contracts. I absolutely know what goes into those contracts. I negotiated a contract for our teachers, and I negotiated our first ever contract for our paraprofessionals in the district that I work in Hamtramck. I have served on the AFT Michigan board as a vice president. And so I've worked with, statewide issues in education. And I currently serve on the library board. So now I'm seeing things from a management point of view as well, working with budgets for that as well. And so I hope to bring, last but not least, I'm a parent of a child in the Royal Oak schools. And so all of those perspectives I feel are very useful and would serve me well to make good, solid decisions in our Royal Oak schools on the school board. So I appreciate your support thus far. I do not have a website and things up and running yet. I will report back next month with all of that, but I just appreciate your support. And I do think that at the last meeting, we did talk about endorsements. I don't know if that's going to be happening at this meeting, but I would absolutely be so honored to receive an endorsement from this club. I've been a long time member of the club. So thank you all for all of your support and for your future support. Thank you. I have not heard anybody who is officially running. So any intel? Let me know. There's 3 seats, and I think one person may run for their seat who's currently on, but I don't think that's officially on. So I understand possibly 2 open seats.
Any other candidates joining us that would like to jump up? Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm a new face. My name is Jeremy Levinson, and I am Congresswoman Haley Stevens' campaign manager. Just wanted to give everyone a quick update on the race. I know the Congresswoman has been to this club 2 or 3 times in the prior months. Unfortunately, couldn't make it out today, running around to a bunch of Pride stuff, like I know we all are this afternoon. But just to give everyone a quick little briefer as to her bio, the Congresswoman currently represents Michigan's 11th congressional district, and she also represents the most of new 11th congressional district. In addition to that, she has the support of Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, who represents the most Democratic voters in the new 11th congressional. And both Congressman Levin and Congresswoman Stevens participated in a forum this past week, hosted by the Birmingham Bloomfield Dems. It was a great forum because it was hosted by a number of local high school schools in the area. They were actually the ones that formulated the questions, that moderated the discussion. And I think something that really rang true at the end of that conversation is Congresswoman Stevens' closing remarks. And she said, I am not here to attack a fellow Democrat, because her whole mission has been to beat Republicans. She flipped this seat in 2018 and helped us win back our Democratic majority. And she won this seat again in 2020 and helped us retain that same Democratic majority. And that's what she's going to do this cycle yet again, when we retain the 11th district and we retain our Democratic majority in the House of Representatives. We're running TV ads right now that talk a little bit about her background and her experience. She is from Birmingham. She's a native here to Oakland County. She served as chief of staff to President Obama's auto rescue. And that just scratches at the surface of who she is as an elected representative. Through her casework, Michael Tash is here. He's a phenomenal member of the Congresswoman's DC team. They've returned over $100 million to the current Michigan elected congressional district. And that is how hard she works as a member of Congress. She's passed 2 bills into law, one promoting giving opportunities for girls and women in STEM to further themselves. And I know with choice on the line this election, she's going to be the member of Congress that fights and pushes for the women's health protection and enshrining Roe v. Wade and making sure that women are protected all across the country. Doing that and standing up to the NRA has been something that she's been doing even in the face of Republican attacks. There was a town hall 2 years ago that she hosted at a gun range. The NRA came and they admonished her. They wouldn't let her finish speaking. And she still stood strong, especially in relation to what we've seen in Oxford High School, Uvalde, Texas. And that's just over the course of the last few months. So she's a fighter that Michigan's 11th needs. She's going to win this primary. She's going to help make sure Democrats up and down the ticket win in November. So thank you everyone for your time. Happy to answer any questions on behalf of the Congresswoman. And I know she very much looks forward to coming in the next meeting and talking to everyone.
And y'all, if you want to watch that for him, he mentioned it's on the Birmingham Field Democratic Club. That's my other tab. It's on their Facebook.
Yeah. And Nicole did a great job with the IT.
I'm the only one who knows how to use a webcam on that board.
Yeah, she's boxes to prop it up.
Tripod, it's legit.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for letting me.
All right, before we go on to I have to cut out of here, but I did want to say, if you can make it to Ferndale Pride today, Ferndale Pride is a blast. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. You should go out and celebrate. Also, Family Pride in Royal Oak is this coming Wednesday at the farmers market, I believe. And also a blast. I think last year they did the food truck.
It is,
Yeah. So celebrate Pride.
Yay!
Any other candidate that would like to say hello or speak up? Yeah, come on up.
I'm really shocked. Or I may have to do something creative here.
That's
there you
perfect.
Hey, everybody, my name is Sharon McDonald, and I am a candidate for state rep in this green space here, 56. And I appreciate them making it the color of my campaign. It's very thoughtful. A lot of you probably haven't seen me. I've met a few of you. I've worked with a few of you on campaigns and door knocking and making phone calls over the years. For 15 years, I have been a grassroots activist and organizer in Troy. And Mitzi, I want to tell you one of the first thing that I did in Troy. They got me really involved. I started a blog called Keep Troy Strong. And the whole purpose of that blog was to save the Troy Public Library, if you remember that time. It took, the city decided that the only way to save the city was to shut down our library. And at that time, my 2 daughters were very young, and I could not let that happen in my town. So I started my blog, got a lot of attention of a lot of people
We worked really hard together. Dozens of people came together from the blog. And then we went with the Friends of the Troy Public Library, and it took almost 2 years, 3 elections, but we finally saved the Troy Public Library. After that, we had a horrifically bad mayor named Janice Daniels, who was homophobic and was known the world round because I found a piece of data from online of her saying homophobic things and posted it on my blog, Keep Your Eyes Strong. So I've been making a lot of trouble in Troy and enjoying every minute of it. And I've done it all for my kids, and I never thought I would ever run for office except for precinct delegate, which I've been for over 10 years. But then after Trump was elected, I co-founded the Troy Indivisible with my friend, and then I became the co-chair and then chair of the Troy Democratic Club. So I've been working my butt off, trying to keep things good in Troy, and Troy is really great now. 6 of our 7 city council members are liberals and do the right thing, and everything's pretty clean there. Now I want to go to Lansing. I want to protect women's reproductive freedoms and do all of the things that all of you want to do. I don't even have to talk about that because I want to say one important thing. I'm very proud and honored to say that yesterday I was notified that in the primary, I have received the endorsement of the UAW. My list, pro-choice endorsement, and the endorsement of our Troy City Councilman David Hamilton. So thank you all for coming today. Thanks for letting me speak. And my website is electsharonmac.com. And I hope you will be willing to maybe come out in District 56, those of you who are voting there, and remember green, and vote for me and maybe volunteer for me, give me $50 so I can make this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, before we introduce Cindy, I did just want to make a quick announcement. Is there anyone that has any of the other petitions that have been circulating on hand with them? You have the Raise My Wage.
I have reproductive freedom.
Okay. Any other ones? Cool. We can do that. Okay. We just had a couple people who are interested. So I'll invite you up and I'll take the
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cool. Thanks. This is Cindy.
Thank you for staying past our allotted time. As many of you know, I'm Cindy Peltonen. I'm from Boston. Hi, Michelle. I'm so glad you're running. I ran for state senate in 2014, so some of you might remember that. As Sharon said, the new district is 56. It includes the northeast precincts and also 7 up there. It's been all of Boston, most of Troy, this side of John R., and 1 in Bloomfield and 1 in Birmingham. I've served on the Clausen Board of Education. I'm in my 21st year. I was elected 5 times and then I retired in 2011, but there was an opening this January and I applied and I was appointed. So I'm back on the school board. Hopefully somebody else will step up. I think it's important that you have kids in school because you really have your finger on the pulse, but that's all I need and I stepped in. I chose to run because I'm really upset about the amount of hate that has been dredged up since that guy was president. So I have 4 children. 2 are members of the LGBT community and 2 are strong allies. But LGBTQ rights were always a family value, even before our kids came out. Then we welcomed our 5th, Heather, in 2014 when she married Rebecca. And now we have 3 grandchildren. I'm going to meet them down at Pride in a little bit. I think my experience in the Board of Education has prepared me well to take this next step. You have the opportunity to work with many different people who have different views. You get input from the community, and then you decide to do what's best for kids. So have that background in making policy. And then also monitoring and developing your budget that helps you get to what goals you've decided on. So I think that would also be useful. I'm a teacher by training and have taught pre-K through high school vocal music. And also I've been a piano teacher ages 3 through adult. And I think the other thing that's important to know about me is that I'm a strong advocate for women. I you know, in a recent survey, we found out so many surveys, who's somebody you look up to. Well, mine was Gloria Steinem. That's how old I am. She's from Toledo. I was from Toledo. And as a high school activist, we went to see Gloria Steinem speak at Toledo University. And she really made an impression on me. And through the years, I've kept up with her. And unfortunately, now we're back to where we were 50 years ago, working for women's reproductive freedom. But that's why I have some petitions here to sign. I think that everybody supports that. It's just that we don't have people representing the people who are voting. You know, because of Citizens United and all this dark money that goes into these Republican campaigns, we have, I've read a statistic, and this is for everyone, but 60% of the people who represent us across the country are white males. They are 30% of the population. And there's some good white males who represent us. So I was trying to find out how many are Republican white males, but do the math. Like Republican white males are representing us, and they're a very small portion of the population. So that's why it's so important that we get people out at this primary and that we get people to vote absentee so we can eliminate some of this hijinks that's going on. I would appreciate, I have an endorsement that I'm proud of that I got this week. My friend Pamela Pugh, Vice President, State Board of Education. And Dave Woodward supporting me, Jim Ellison, Brandon, Kyle, Tim. We have a lot of grassroots support and endorsements and contributions. And as always, we can always use more contributions. Every little bit helps. I do have signs available too, and you can check out my website, cindypeltonen.com. Thank you.
No? Was that a question?
Well, I have a motion.
Great.
So I live down in the 7th. My amazing friend Melanie Macy's running this side. This is our last meeting before the August primary, so I would like to make a motion that we endorse Melanie Macy for the 7th state house race.
Don't we have to give notice?
We did last month.
Repeat it. For them.
Yeah. So the way that endorsements work at the club level is that we have to have a 30-day notice of an endorsement being put forward. Tim had done so at the last meeting, that we would open up the floor and discuss that and take suggested endorsements during this meeting. Like Brandon said, we don't have an official July meeting. That's always kind of been our tradition because of the 4th of July weekend. And the entire month of July is going to kind of be our month of action, right? That we're going to have some canvases going at all different levels. We'll work with the Vote Yes for the millage, and we're going to have some candidate forums throughout July. So that's the plan instead of a scheduled meeting that first week. So that means, like Brandon said, the election will be Tuesday, and then our August meeting will be that following Saturday. So this is the last formal club meeting, at least before the primaries. So there is a motion on the floor. We can take some discussion if we would like to move forward with that. The way that this will work is that we'll entertain a motion for each individual race. So since it was put forward, the way that it was put forward at the last meeting is that we will entertain endorsements this meeting, but we will take them one by one. So Brandon put forward a motion to endorse for the club to formally endorse Melanie Macy in the race for the House 7th. Is there a second? Seconded. Is there any discussion? Like James?
Yes. Do we have enough of a forum to handle something like this point, or what does our process say?
It's a vote of who's paying members present at the time.
Yeah, all of questions.
Any other discussion? I saw a couple hands. Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah, so but I don't think I need to tell the room this that much, but I mean, Melanie Macy's been amazing for the community. She's been out there. She's pushed all of us. I mean, as a leader, I'm better because of Melanie Macy. And I know she's going to do that. She's progressive and she's the exact person. So she's won the high vote the last 2 times ran. I don't think it's going to be a surprise if she wins for a vote, but I'm looking forward to that.
Right.
Okay, next question is, part of the process goes, are we debating whether to do endorsements for primary, or are we just actually debating whether to endorse the bill? That's the next question.
We'll take each motion as it comes in. So this would be a conversation solely about whether or not the club wants to endorse Melanie.
We're not going to have a discussion about primary endorsements first.
We can if you'd like to say something about it. No, procedurally the discussion would be for just each motion.
I guess I would like to raise the issue, how well do we know about the other candidates and what, have we done to seek information about the other candidates running in this race? We do have an incumbent state representative who also is running in the 7, and I think is a well-qualified candidate. As much as I like Melanie and as much as I've supported her at City Commission, this is what the club would be voting for if they are to endorse Melanie. We're voting against the current incumbent state representative who, represents Detroit and now would be the 7th. Her name's Lena Scott.
Yeah, so the official stance of both the party and the club typically is to not endorse in primaries, pretty much across the board for this reason, right? That as a club, our purpose is educational and access to, and encouraging of resources, and not to fill a role of just being a counterpart for any particular candidate. Across the board, I mean, at the risk of editorializing a little bit, and I think what Mike is getting at, I think that we should have some thoughts or hesitancy about primary endorsements in general without the proper information, right? Is that we haven't heard from Helena. I don't know, because of the club being now split between 4 districts, there might be lots of club members here that have not done the research that they would need to if they're not in the district. So that might be where it comes from. And I think that we have to, right, as good, engaged Democrats and as people that have stuck it out for this very long meeting, I would encourage you that, like, just voting against this endorsement is not a statement against Melanie Macy, right? It's against the process of endorsement or the choice to endorse at this time.
I think since that point, the meetings are very well publicized, very public, and Rep. Scott said every opportunity to come meet these conferences, and that's taking it up. Being that the door has been opened on that other topic, I want to speak up very quickly.
Yeah, please.
We have primaries right now where we have really good pieces of Democrats. I have problems figuring out who I'm going to vote for. I know who I'm going to vote for, but I still hesitate. I think there are circumstances where we have primaries where there are people who are running who shouldn't be there. In those cases, we need to make an endorsement to signal that the people who shouldn't be in that primary got to get out. But in these races today, during this primary, I don't see Democrats who we need to stand against and who we need to take out of the process. And that's part of how I see primary endorsements. We have bad candidates. We need to stand up against them. We're in the lucky, fortunate situation of having a series of primaries with great candidates. who am I to stand against the white Democrat in the primary? As a club, as a process, who am I advocating for? I can't advocate for. And so I'm speaking against primary endorsements in this circumstance because of our fortunate situation. And I'm done. Please, somebody else. So I'm trying to talk right now. I'm pulling this off our website. Our mission is to assist in electing Democrats to public office in Maryland, Boston, Madison Heights, and neighboring areas. Our mission is to elect Democrats. And I think primaries are effective to do that. It's who has our values, who has this community's values, this club's values, who has been with us and who will continue to be with us. Melanie Mason's been a great friend of this club. I can see if he wants to know other maybe nominations, but to me, I think she is a phenomenal choice for this club with our values.
Decision yet? I get it. Yeah, Art.
I want to echo what other people have said about, I don't believe we should endorse in primaries, except rarely, like we did endorse in the Karen McDonald race. I thought that was an important race to endorse in, we did. But in general, I think we should avoid it, especially when there are members of the club who are supporting both sides. But I think I might favor this this motion just because of Melanie, and I don't know if there's I guess is there anyone who would be not supporting Melanie in this race that wants to raise their hand? You don't have to.
I mean, you gotta live in the seventh to answer that question, right?
Yeah, so that's the other challenge I think that Lauren brought up is how many people in this room actually live in the 7th district? Raise your hand. Okay, so 2 people out of a group of people voting to endorse in a race they can't even vote in, that to me is also further exacerbating the problems with endorsing as a club when the majority of people voting on that endorsement do not even have the ability to vote for the candidate they are endorsing. I live in Madison Heights. Why should I be voting to endorse someone in a Royal Oak district? Does that seem right to anyone? I mean, I personally have problems with, I think in nonpartisan races, we can justify that with the mission of electing Democrats because we're endorsing candidates that the Democratic Party would support in a nonpartisan, otherwise obscure election. But either way, this primary is going to result with a Democrat. And I don't know enough, even if I was in the 7th, I don't know enough about Helena to make that decision. And I doubt that my opposition to endorsing has nothing to do with my opinion of Melanie, because I adore Melanie. I just don't think it's our place to vote on an endorsement with limited information, primarily by people who don't live in the district they're endorsing.
Yeah.
I think that many organizations, thinking especially unions, endorse candidates consistently for people that they can't necessarily vote. That's why we're saying this organization does support what Melanie stands for, and we do believe that she would represent support. So I don't think that would be the first box is the vote that she did.
Lisa.
I'm just gonna do an emotional thing and say, we don't need more divisiveness. There's too much of it already, and I would like us to be united in saying that this is not an appropriate time for endorsement.
First off, I want to say that I was by Melanie appreciate the representation. Having said that, and it's one of the 2 residents of the 7th district, I share Mike, Paul, and
Lisa.
Jason.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is we're not united. We have a divergence of opinion, which is fine.
Some people think it's appropriate to endorse in primaries. I'm one of them. Many others do not, obviously. I think the point for me is that we know Melanie. She's been here. She's talked to us. We understand her values. The other candidate has not chosen to address this club, even though she has had a chance to. I don't know anything about her. She may be fine. But bottom line, I don't think living in the district is important because everyone who gets elected goes to the state house and they're going to represent Royal Oak, for better or for worse. I think that means everybody here should have a say in who this club wants to endorse. And if you don't think we should endorse, that's fine. I mean, I can live with all of you fine afterwards, but I'm going to vote yes on endorsing that.
There will be an August meeting. There will still be an August meeting. This is healthy, right? This is really, really healthy. Mitzi.
Just real quick, if you feel like you don't want to vote against Melanie, you don't have to vote either way. When you call for the vote, people can just, not vote.
Well, and to clarify, it's not voting against Melanie, it's voting against endorsement.
There should be an abstain. Abstain.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think, sorry, Michael.
I can say one quick thing. I just think the better method to do this is a candidate forum and not endorsement. Because that is a way we compare candidates side by side. That's planned next month. That seems to be the appropriate avenue. And then each member can make their own vision. And I think as most Dem clubs do, they generally do stay out of most races, especially primary and primary. I think we should do the same thing as the NDP does.
And that's something, this race in particular, that's not something that we pursued, but there's nothing stopping us. So yeah, I think that could be an option as well into July. So I think the information's out there. Like we said, this isn't, I get that there are emotions tied to everything that we do. But I think that we can all do this in an academic way, right, for what's best. So I will call for a vote because the motion's on the floor. We can't ignore it. And so you've got a few choices. I'll call for votes in favor, votes opposed, abstentions. We'll also tally the people who are online. So if there's anybody left with us, our friends on Zoom should get an award. And you can vote either with the green check mark, the red X box, or I think there's like a coffee cup if you want to abstain. I think that was what we used to do. So if you'd like to cast your vote at the same time that we're voting here, our will take care of that. Okay?
And as a information, you must be a dues paying member of the club in order to vote. So if you have not paid dues or just the visitor setting, you're not.
Either like the majority vote, simple majority,
It is simple majority of eligible dues paid members present at this moment.
And do abstentions count as no vote?
No, abstentions are not a no vote.
It's
They
a
would
so it's a simple majority of
They would
board.
Contribute to the
6, 8, 10, 12.
Correct. Abstentions are removed before the vote.
So there's 22 people here right now.
And then we have Kyle DeBuck and Dave Woodward, and someone identified as iPhone who I've asked to identify themselves, but iPhone has not voted, so that might not be relevant.
So assuming that the people left remaining are dues paid members, we're looking at about a simple majority of about 24. We're gonna do it. All in favor of the endorsement the motion to endorse Melanie Macy in the race for the 7th district, raise your hand or vote yes in the check mark box.
Dave Woodward and Kyle DeBuck have voted yes.
11, counting the online vote. All opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember what the rule was.
I believe it was how many were against? Because you said 11 for. abstentions or removed before it's up. So.
Sounds like it's motion.
Passes. Congratulations, Melanie.
There were more.
We'll let her know.
Yeah, so you have the number of for votes, the number of against votes, abstentions don't count either direction, and so if the majority of counted abstentions is against, then it wouldn't be as simple as
The assumption that it is that if someone didn't vote, they either don't have a signature or have a new paper.
So 15 was the number of votes for or against, right?
15 was the total youth came.
So
11 for against, and then
that's all you really need.
We'll pass that information on now. Yeah, Tim.
Move that we open one and this is city councilman.
Any second?
Which is an uncontested.
Yeah.
Wait. It's a non-incumbent race, but there is a
Yeah. I mean, Sharon's. What's that? Yeah.
Is there a second? Okay. Discussion. I think we had the general discussion about feelings on this, right? Yeah.
Well,
we'll play the recording. Yeah. All right.
I mean, I guess I'm not going to be in favor this time. I voted in favor of endorsing last time because of Melanie's long history with the club. I don't think there's a similar history, and I'm not versed enough with the two candidates to be voting this time.
Thanks for that.
It's getting more and more disturbing that the meeting is an hour over and we're voting with such a small number of people present. An hour after the meeting was supposed to end, it just feels like it's, behind closed doors, curtains, behind whatever.
Try my best.
It's
disturbing. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's fair. Any other thoughts? Okay. Those in favor? Those opposed? Abstention? This fails. Any other motions, thoughts, ideas on the floor? Any other candidates joining us? Nope, because I don't have any more details about it.
A candidate will have
Yeah, and those of you that have contact with other with any of the other, I don't have a map anymore. The map that was there. Right, if you have connections with some of the other smaller primary races and want to hear from those candidates, I think that would be beautiful. We just hadn't, people have not reached out to us to entertain that idea. So do that. Any other issues on the floor? Brandon, Tim, I don't really know what to tell you. I haven't been quite faced with this just yet. I know that we're way over it, and so I need to be respectful of people's time. Yep, we're good. Okay, cool. Could I entertain a motion to adjourn for the day? Yeah, Jerry, seconded by Mike James. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Okay, good. Brandon and I will stay here and
And if anybody has a couple minutes, I'd really appreciate if anyone wants to help with deconstructing the room.